live.
Did anybody else lose $275,000 this weekend on an MMA fight where that fighter said LeBron James is a spineless person? Did anybody else lose money?
I don't bet myself personally on MMA or anything else, but I know you've been dipping your toe in the Bet365 game lately, Brian.
Yeah, I'm a little bit down. That's okay. Not as down as your ambassador. Anyway, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you right now. Just know that you are locked in on To The Point with
Skip
and the King. You guys know what to do. Go down there, click subscribe, click like, leave a comment. We're still waiting for our 400 subscriber to give away this Raptors toque, which you can get. Winter's almost over. Maybe you can use it next winter. Maybe you can use it in the summertime as a beanie. Who knows? But today we have the one and only Papa Minnow from the Pops Culture podcast, who has his eye on the city of Toronto. And it's always a pleasure every time you come on, Aquaman. And we appreciate it. And we would love to hear your takes. So thank you very much for being here today. How are you doing today, my friend?
Man, I'm doing well. The Raptors have got me a little bit down. The weather has also not been the greatest as well, too, in the city of Toronto. Yesterday was great, but today's a completely different story. I think it's matching that Raptors loss there last night as well, too. Other than that, I've been good, though. I can't really complain. Everything's been going well on my end, so it's been a really good time going for me forward.
Well, thank you for coming on, so let's get right into this. Papa, your podcast, The Pops Culture, really has its fingers on the pulse of the city of Toronto. Now, when it comes down to the city of Toronto, we do have the one and only Canadian NBA team in the Toronto Raptors. Now, I've seen some of you people out there saying, let's tank, let's rebuild, let's trade this person, let's trade that person. They're all getting upset. I personally think that you're just spoiled by that championship win. Losses happen, and maybe you listen to too much Drake and LeBron is your GOAT. But Papa, since you have your pulse on the city of Toronto, do you think the Raptors should tank or keep what they have in the last 7 games within the last 10 days?
I mean, I've definitely heard a lot of the same things going on in the streets. One point that you brought up is that I feel like a lot of Raptors fans are definitely spoiled with that championship team. Ever since we won the championship, expectations have been sky high despite whatever roster we've happened to throw out on the court. So in my personal opinion, I don't think that they need to tank. I think that that's such a drastic take for what the team needs to do. I mean, currently they're in 7th, and I know this week has been a rough one for them. They've definitely lost more games than they've happened to win. And then they're on a 3-game losing streak currently as well, too. So that hasn't been good for them as well. But they are coming off of the All-Star break, which I think is a period in which sometimes teams happen to, lose their mojo. They were really hot going into it, and then coming out of it, they probably just had that break, and that's kind of mess up with their mojo, mess up with their flow, on top of all the injuries that they happen to have going as well, too. So those are things that you should take into consideration when deciding on if this team should tank. I think tanking's super risky. You don't know what you're going to get. You're not guaranteed to get what you want to get as well, too. And unless the Raptors have their eye on a bona fide center that's coming out of the draft in the next year, I don't really think that the option of going to look for, the option of tanking and looking for something in that draft is going to help this team go forward. I think what they need to do is just stick to what they've been doing, wait for a lot of their guys to come back healthy, like OG Anunoby and obviously Fred VanVleet, who's a huge component of this team. Just ride the wave. Once those guys come back, they should be back at full strength and be a good team like they were prior to that All-Star break. So I think just keep sticking with it and then figure it out from there. I don't really think tanking's their option. As much as Raptors fans like to hop off their windows and jump out buildings and burn down the streets of Toronto whenever the Raptors have. Yeah. Chair girl, yeah. She all that happens. So I think we're just such a desperate fan base. We're really drastic as well too. Like we go up so high with the highs and go so low with the lows. Just really, we need to stay par for the course and just keep going with what we're doing right now.
Can I just jump in really quick? The one thing is like, the one thing that people are, I think why this is coming up is because you see the Raptors tailing off, and that Thaddeus Young draft pick, it's I think top 16 protected. So if they were to somehow fall all the way out of the play-in, you get that draft pick back. Then again, even if you get that draft pick back, it's still probably going to be like 15th, 16th overall. Like, and then you miss the playoffs. So, yeah.
Papa, what do you think about that draft pick scenario?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a decent pick to pick up, but I also already think that the Raptors they do struggle with depth. So, I mean, getting another guy would be a benefit to their team. But I feel like they also have a struggle right now with the core that they have. Finding touches for OG Anunoby, Siakam, Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent, and Scottie all at once is something that they had struggled with in the past in terms of trying to find a balance between all five of those guys. So I think adding another piece to where you're looking for them to be a big contributor would be another like detriment for this team as well too in that front. So you like I said, you're not guaranteed anything in the draft. You don't know what you're gonna get. I don't know. I'm personally not the biggest college dude, so I don't know who's really projected to be around that pick and who's going to be able to help them. But in terms of gambling in the draft, I don't think you should tank and drop out of the play-in just to be able to get someone who you potentially think could help this team going forward. It's just a little bit too risky. And you've got a good core. I think you should work on developing your core, getting Scottie more touches, getting him more active on the defensive end and more comfortable with what he needs to be able to do.
We'll get into that. Now, Skip, thank you for your input, Papa. Now, Skip, I got to ask you a question. Based recently in, like I said, 7 games in the last 10 days, how do you think the injuries have affected the Toronto Raptors going with 2 wins and 5 losses recently?
Well, I mean, the injuries are everything, right? I mean, this team is missing 2 of its best 4 players. And we've gone into this, it's been clear all season, this team is shallow. This team is very, very, very shallow. When they get their top 5, top 6 guys together, they win games. When those guys are not in the lineup, who's replacing them? The guys that Nick Nurse didn't trust to play even 5 minutes earlier in the season when we were actually winning games. Like your Malachi Flynn's. Now you're going past your Malachi Flynn's. You're going your Dalton O'Bantons. This Armani Brooks guys just got signed off the street like 2 days ago. So like, yeah.
Freudian slip, Armani Bricks.
Armani. So yeah, we said all year that this team is really shallow, and I think the injuries have really shown. Obviously, the lack of spacing. When you don't have Fred VanVleet, when you don't have OG Anunoby, those are 2 of your best 3-point shooters. But second of all, those are 2 of your best defenders, right? And you can't replace that. No matter what you search for in your roster, unless you have like some next guy coming up off the street who's going to be a star, you're not going to be able to replace what those guys do for you. And we've seen it's been really, really, really clogged in the paint the past few games. The Raptors just can't score. I mean, that game against Cleveland last night or 2 nights ago while you're watching this, that was like the Raptors played really well for a team that can't freaking score. Like, come on, like they scored 16 points in that third quarter and they won the quarter. Like, that's insane to me. And
80s basketball, baby.
Yeah, it was 80s basketball. And even the games against Orlando and Detroit, I think those games they might have been able to squeak out without scoring if they just played slightly better defense. But we've seen this team, like, with Gary Trent going into the tank like he has, they just have no spacing on the floor. And obviously, some of that stuff is going to clean itself up once Fred gets back. Gary Trent, I don't know if he's got Steve Sachs disease right now, if he's actually broken, or if it's just a question of like everyone has a slump and he's just having a slump at the worst possible time. But that's another thing to consider. Once these guys get some shooting back, the Raptors have a really, really, really thin margin for victory anyway. Like, even when they have everybody like playing and clicking on the same page, it's really still quite a struggle in the half court. And all season we've been saying this team, I don't know if they can get it done in the half court. They need transition. They need offensive rebounding. They need this. They need that. It kind of works when everyone's in the lineup. When everyone's not in the lineup, that's when it all falls apart. And that's what we've seen this past week. And I mean, as for the tank thing, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they've made their bed with the Thaddeus Young trade. But they do need to get their guys back, and they need to get back into rhythm before the play-in tournament.
Guys, can I just say something here?
Yeah.
From what I've seen, okay, the bright spot in the last 7 games for me, personally, has been the Rook, Scottie Barnes, averaging 18.6, right? 8.9 rebounds, 3 assists, shooting almost 60% from field goal percentage, right? 0.9 blocks. That might be a little misconstrued because I have seen him come up with blocks at the time when it needs to be done. At the end of the half, at the end of the game, hitting clutch free throws. I think he might not be the best point guard right now, but he has shown signs of it when he's actually had to take the Raptors to the next level, especially the 2 wins against Brooklyn. They were close with the other teams, such as, well, let's not go into Detroit because I did bet for Detroit. Sorry, Toronto Raptors fans. But the other teams, I did see a lot of shine, a lot of promise from them, right? And like you mentioned, Papa, about tanking, right? What people were saying, they're not going to get another Scottie Barnes to put into the lineup. Let's face it and be real, Toronto Raptors fan. You're not going to get a player like that. You're not going to get someone that could put up those numbers, that can handle the business, right? I the other night I saw him. I gotta say this, man. I was surprised. I seen him pick up Boucher and Pascal one after the other after they both went down, and he still went to the other team and helped. I can't remember who. I think it was Sadiq Bey. Helped him up as well. You know what I mean? You gotta love a guy with that kind of character, that kind of charisma, that kind of that mentality to win. But I will say, Skip, like you said 2 things there that I would like to touch on there. Okay, you did say the bench, and I have been harping on this. You know, from the beginning of the season, I have been harping on this. Nick Nurse, give them their reps, because now, like you said, Skip, with these players being injured, how are these guys going to play? They haven't been getting their reps. They haven't been playing their minutes. They haven't been able to get involved into the game. They're just being thrown out there. It's like thrown to the fire, okay? But to me, that's not even the worst spot. Let me tell you what I see in the last 7 games. To me, was the worst, okay? It's got to be, and I've said this since the beginning of the season, okay? Mr. Gary Trent Jr. I like him. I like him, but I said in the beginning of the season, he shouldn't be taking that many shots unless he is hot. If he's hot, yeah, feed him the ball. Feed anybody the ball. But if you look at the last 7 games, he's only been shooting 29% from field goal. He's only been shooting 22% from the 3-point line. His steals aren't even there where he normally is at, right? His assists, his rebounds, his points, where is he? Now, guys, the question I have to ask you guys is, based with the injuries and the bench and some of these Raptors not being together chemistry-wise, what do you think needs to happen to make these pieces get put back together like Humpty Dumpty?
Papa, I'll let you take that one.
I would say you just have to wait for guys to come back or give guys more run. I mean, one thing that you touched on as well too, I want to talk about Gary Trent real quick. I think with him, it's a lot easier for teams to kind of game plan for him when you know that the Raptors are missing 2 of their best guys in OG Anunoby and Fred VanVleet. So I feel like a lot of that is also cluing in on him not being able to produce, is partly because he's probably trying to do too much because those guys are gone. But also teams have also kind of clued in like, hey, this is the next best guy up, along with Pascal Siakam. So it's not too hard for them to game plan around those 3 guys in Scottie, Pascal, and Gary Trent. And I think that's where a lot of his struggles have come from as well too, just how teams have been choosing to defend them. And then on the front of the bench as well too, Malachi Flynn, he did a pretty good job when he came in, but then unfortunately he ended up going down. I think one of the stats that I saw online was that he had a span of like 145 minutes over 7 games, and he only had 2 turnovers within that span of time.
Yeah,
so
I saw that too.
Yeah, so he has been really good, and he was doing a pretty bang-up job, especially for a guy who's been in and out of the rotation and just had to kind of play within the fire.
Yeah, I was just going to say 145 minutes in a week and 145 minutes in the whole season before that point.
Yeah, which is nuts too. Like that's on Nick Nurse. Like he's just been running the starters a bit way too much. And we touched on this as well too when I was last here, is that they were playing record minutes, especially Fred VanVleet, who's now out with his knee injury. He was playing like 40 plus minutes, which is I think 3rd in the league at that point in time as well too. So
he's leading the league in minutes right now.
Yeah, so you definitely got to have the bench support more. You got to trust in them a little bit more. See if you can get some continuity there and gelling. I know right now it's really hard because injuries are prevalent, but they do have a little bit of a break. And I do think Fred's supposed to be back sometime soon. I think, like I said, right now you just kind of have to wait it out. There's no real exact solution. I think once you get your guys back into the rotation, that'll be when the team is a lot better, especially when you rely on Scottie Barnes and Pascal, who are they drive and kick. And that creates a lot of opportunities for a lot of other guys. And when they're passing it to guys on the wing who can't make threes, you're not really going to win that many games. But once you get Fred VanVleet, who shoots at 40% over the year, and you get OG Anunoby, who takes 7 shots and makes 3 of them, you're going to get a lot more production on the offensive end and be able to win a lot more games as well too.
Skip?
Well, there's a lot of stuff you covered there. I'm going to circle back to Gary Trent. I think to some extent, there's obviously this factor of teams zeroing in on him, but there's also just the fact that he's completely lost his shot. And that's not, I don't think that's a function of defense. I think that's a function of confidence. That's a function of stuff getting into his head. I relate it back to when you're shooting pool and you just sort of lose your stroke. Like I always talk about that. I mean, I know people don't want to hear about that, but what I did see from him last game, what I did see from him last game was, this is where I'm going with this. I saw him going and hitting those elbow jumpers, even though the 3 wasn't following, even though he couldn't get his 3s to go. He just went in and he started making those elbow jumpers. And sometimes that's what you need. When you're shooting pool, you can't make your long straight shots. You just need a couple little tap-ins, like just to get your confidence back, just to get the feel back, just get the flow back. So I'm hoping that he can fix that. And I think, honestly, even with VanVleet and OG being out, if Trent can start hitting just a couple more 3s a game, that will make a huge difference. Because I was looking into not the advanced numbers. I was looking into the numbers since the All-Star break. And look at their 3-point percentage. It's not so much the percentage that's down. It's not quite as high as it was before the All-Star break. But the biggest thing that's hurting them is they're making 3 fewer 3s a game. And I mean, that's 9 points right there. And that's basically the difference in the offense between before the break and after the break, is that they're missing 3 3s a game. And if Gary Trent can just trigger 1 or 2 more 3s a game, that totally opens things up. It makes things a little less clogged. And I want to go back into Scottie actually a little bit. I think one really nice thing about seeing Scottie.
Double entendre?
Oh boy, throw me off, Brian. One nice thing about Scottie, we've seen him step up. We've seen him do some point guard things. We've seen him put up some big numbers and gets a lot more usage with the guys out, which is very good for him. But one detriment I would say is that Scottie's skills kind of coalesce with the team's skills, if you know what I mean. So what I mean by that is Scottie isn't necessarily a great shooter. He doesn't necessarily have great touch around the rim. What we see is a guy who's really good in transition, a guy who you'll often see, like how many times have you seen him go into the lane, miss a layup, get his rebound, put it back in? That's sort of how the Raptors play, and that's how Scottie plays. So when you're looking for someone to break open your half-court offense, when your half-court offense is broken, I don't know if he's going to be that guy yet. I think those aren't necessarily his skills. As much as he is a great passer, as much as he is a ball handler, as much as he is kind of this do-everything player, that's just not his specific skill set. He doesn't have enough of a jump shot.
So who do you think is the half-court guy?
Well, they don't have one. I mean, Fred VanVleet when he's healthy. I'm just saying that we can't put all this on Scottie. He's been great. Don't get me wrong. And all of those things I just described, like you could say that about Giannis too. Like I see like a guy who's a great passer who only really works in transition as a ball handler. That describes Giannis. So like, this doesn't mean it's a problem on Scottie. It's just, he's not the guy that you need to be leaning on to break this open. And Pascal too. I mean, he operates in the lane as well. So you need someone who's able to take those pull-up jump shots, take those spot-up jump shots. And they just don't have that guy right now until Gary Trent figures it out and until Fred VanVleet's back in the lineup, which is hopefully going to be this week.
AKA Mr. Streaky Jr.
Yeah.
He's been very, very, very streaky. So guys, I have one last question for you. Y'all ready? There's 18 games left in the season. Well, let's put it all out there. Balls out. Bet 365. Let's put it out there.
$100
Do you guys
on the table.
Yeah, throw it on the table. Roll that dice. Let's go. Do you guys? What's the likelihood of the Raptors? Because let's be quite honest here. And sorry, Raptors fans that are saying blow it up and tank and whatever. They're going to make the playoffs this year. Let's be quite honest. Even if they lose the next 2 games, they're still at the same spot. Okay? Let's be quite honest. So they do have a shot, and there's 18 games left. Do you think they will be in the play-in tournament, or do you think they could turn it around and hit that 6th spot to stay away from it?
Papa? I might jump in on that. So I think last time we came on here, we were talking about how the Raptors could chase down the Celtics or maybe the Bulls or the Cavs if someone fell off a little bit. That's kind of out the window a little bit, because you look at the guys they lost to, the teams they lost to this week, those were all the teams they had to beat. Like the team that were in front of them, the teams that were behind them. Those were all the teams that they lost to this week, other than Brooklyn, who also was running a G League roster. So, I mean, it's hard to really get too excited and think they can chase down the 6th seed now. I think now is really going to be a matter of getting healthy, trying to get into that 7-8 matchup, trying to win that 7-8 matchup. And there's always that specter of Brooklyn lurking on the horizon, which is kind of nerve-wracking. But like I said before, their margin is really thin once they do get into the play-in. But I'm not too optimistic about them getting to the 6th seed at this point.
So you just answered my question. You're thinking play-in.
Yeah, play-in.
Okay, Papa, what do you think?
I mean, it's real hard to bet that they're gonna make the playoffs and not have to play in the play-in. But I don't know. I think they're only 3 games back of the Chicago Bulls right now. The Bulls have been on a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah.
If the Raptors can get their guys back in time, I do think they can make a push for that 6th seed, depending on who happens to be there. They do have a West Coast Conference road trip coming up, which looks pretty difficult in my mind. So, I mean, that might change my answer going forward. But I do think they can squeeze into that 6th spot. I do think someone up above will probably drop a little bit downwards in the next few games. And if the Raptors do happen to get their guys back soon, which I think Fred's supposed to come back real soon, and he's the biggest piece of this, I do think they can squeak into that 6th spot. So I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic here and say that they can probably get the 6th spot. Can
I just say one thing? I think they would have had a way better shot of sneaking into the 6th spot if they'd beaten the Cavs on Sunday.
Okay.
Because that's
Speaking
a
of
6 right now.
That's true. They are a few games back from them too. Yeah. So
I have one last question for you guys, and this is you just tell me, okay, what you think. Do you guys think that out of this 7-game stretch where the Raptors have lost 5 games, do you think, especially against Orlando, Detroit, like some of the bottom feeders, some of the catfish down south, do you think that the Raptors went into the game overthinking, thinking that they're overachieving, and that's why they didn't come out swinging, as opposed to when they do play against teams that are better than them and they give them a hell of a run? Do you think that had something to do with them psychologically and mentally?
I think, well, against I'll answer the Detroit one. The Detroit one, they're just cursed. They're never going to beat Detroit in the regular season ever again. So give that one up. But the other ones, I think, yeah, maybe coming back
Atlanta,
from
Orlando, Charlotte.
Yeah, coming back from the All-Star break, I think they probably still felt like they had that mojo and they could just kind of relax on it. Like, I feel like after a break, sometimes you're a little bit lackadaisical, and I think that's kind of what happened to them right after, and that's why they got blown out. They weren't putting much effort into those games where they happened to get blown out. So I think that definitely played a factor in it. So I do think, yeah, psychologically, there was an aspect in which they probably thought, hey, these teams aren't that good. We should be able to beat them easily, especially after those 2 wins in Brooklyn, and then you go and face Orlando. They probably had a huge high coming off of them. Like, okay, we still got it. Like, we're still that team. And that probably gave them a little bit of overconfidence in that sense and probably lackadaisical. But again, injuries are probably the biggest thing. They definitely should have won against Orlando. I think that's a team that you should have obviously beat. Detroit should be one on paper, but again, psychologically, I don't know. Dwayne Casey curse is real strong, man. It's funny that you mentioned that you bet on Detroit, because I also bet on Detroit too, just off of the last few times. I'm like, there's no way the Raptors are going to beat these guys in the regular season ever again. So now I just bet on Detroit each time. Easy money.
Skip that during the day. We were chatting. I was like him that during the day.
That was an obvious one, yeah.
Yeah,
Skip,
so some easy money there, yeah.
Where do you think the Raptors are psychologically with these teams that should be below them on paper?
Well, I think it's tempting to read a little bit into it, but I mean, let's be real. The Raptors are a bad team right now until VanVleet and OG get back. They're a bad team right now. At least until not for the rest of the season. Until OG and Freddie get back, they are a bottom feeder type team. So I don't think we can read too much into this being like a psychological breakdown. It's fatigue. It's missing guys. It's maybe there was a bit of a lull after the All-Star break where they kind of psychologically went down the valley a little bit, but I don't think
bench guys not getting reps. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's kind of a different issue, so to speak. But I think it was easy when it was like Atlanta or Charlotte to say it's just the Raptors being a little off their game. But now we see that guys were struggling, guys were hurt, so I don't know if it's mental or physical, like at this point. But basically the Raptors just need to get their shit together. And that's whatever that means.
Okay, well, there you have it, guys. Papa, this has been a great conversation. Okay.
As always.
Always a pleasure having you on. Man, I love listening to your podcast. You really do have your finger on the pulse of the city of Toronto, and since I'm a lot older than you, right? I do feel it. No, I do feel it. I do understand. I do hear how it goes. You've had some great points. Skip, you suck today. No, I'm kidding. You right, my brother. But this has been a great conversation, guys. You know what to do. Go down there, click subscribe, click like, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. We're still waiting for our 400 subscriber for this. You guys go check out Pop's Culture. Okay, great podcast. If you live in the city of Toronto, yeah, I said Toronto. If you're not from here, you say Toronto. Right? Go check it out. If you're from here, you'll understand. You guys know where to find Simon at Dougie J's on Twitter. Baseball season's not around, so he's been pretty inactive. But you can find him at simonbroder.com and Amazon.ca to go buy the book, Running the Point. If you don't buy it, you suck. You guys know what to do. I see you guys on Facebook getting at me all the time, every day, consistently. Keep it coming. I enjoy it, and I enjoy speaking with you guys and reaching out to you guys. So, guys, do you have anything left to say, Papa?
No, it's just been a pleasure as always, man. I love when you guys have me on. It's always a good time. Love talking raps. I know this week was a little bit difficult, but they'll bring it back. I think they got it. So we'll see what happens. But thank you guys for having me so much, man. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming on. Skip.
I just want to mention that Precious. We didn't talk about Precious at all today, and he's had a nice week. There's been some real glimpses there.
Yeah, he is a bright spot as well. So, on behalf of myself, the one and only Simon Broder at Dougie J's, the Skip, and the one and only Papa Minnow Aquaman, as I call him. All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, and
Peace.